So, welcome to the first episode in the second series, sounds very pompous, of the Immersive Theater of Learning. We did 5 episodes in 2024, and Happy New Year, everyone. This is 2025. Now, the Immersive Theater of Learning is basically a book published last year, and I had the idea to open it up, not just for readers, but for anybody interested in the subject of learning, and to use some of the ideas from the book and to discuss them, to open them, to challenge them, to share them. And also, every time I have an invitee or several people who are guests, and today my guest is Elsie. Elsie Z, hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
And Elsie has been a regular on this series as well. And today is a very general topic: enabling people to learn. And I think, hands up, who is somewhere in the learning space? Who is a consultant, a coach, a teacher, or a trainer, or at least some of your time? Right. So I think that's most people. And Aliona is joining as well. And I hope you followed the instructions and you brought your job description. But we're going to reduce the job description to one non-verbal thing, which is a gesture. I had this idea a long time ago in Germany. When I was growing up, there was this quaint, quirky little TV show called Was bin ich? What am I? And there was this older gentleman, he was already old at the time, who presented this, and there were people coming in who wouldn't say a word, and they would just make a hand gesture, and then there were the candidates, same candidates every show, and they had to ask yes and no questions and had to find out what these invitees' jobs were. So could have been anything, a plumber, could have been, but they were usually not famous people. So what I would like you to think of as a warmer, and we're not going to do the quiz thing, but could you think of a hand gesture, something nonverbal that would represent your role as a learning professional? Okay, Jamil, you kicked this off. Wow. Can you say something about it?
Well, I believe it's like expanding, expanding your conscience with the other people conscience, and about creativity. I mean, I think this says everything, you're mixing your energy with with the rest of the universe.
Exciting. Yeah, it's like a volcano, right?
Yeah,
Coming out.
exactly.
Eruption.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's about energy, and it's about, something going up and coming out.
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely.
Who's next? Maybe you're not ready, but who's next with a gesture?
I'm willing to go.
Okay, go for it. Yeah, Lisbeth.
This
Okay.
because I usually work one-on-one with my clients, and I feel like a lot of the programs that I do, there's a lot of conversation, and I really invite people to share their experiences, their perspectives, and I learn from that every time as well. So it's like really connecting with my clients.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Who's going to go next? Okay, Aliona.
It's interesting. How do you pronounce your name? Is it Yamile or
Yeah, Yamile. But it's here. If you call me Jam, it's
Jam?
easier. Think
Okay,
of
good.
the sweet potato. I'm done. Okay.
Okay. It's interesting when you shared your gesture. I had like the quite the opposite idea of doing like this, something, or maybe even to the point, yeah, pointing to something. Because when I do programs, I think like there is vast amount of information that we can share, but we bring it into something and to, like we come to a point and people get to understand something. So we make some conclusions. So to me, it would, and also make connections. Well, for me, would not be quite this, but for some reason, more like,
I believe you're more focused than me. I'm more dispersed.
yeah, the
Aren't these two,
first this and then this.
yeah, aren't these two part of the same thing? I mean, maybe Yamila's thing comes first, so all the ideas, and then we need to focus and maybe choose one or choose a direction. So yeah, very good. Marco, I think you had a gesture already. Can you do it again?
Hello, everybody. Well, this is in my work. I teach emotional geography, which is a sort of finding a balance between minds and art.
Yeah.
Put together our physical elements, rational elements with emotional elements. It's a long description, but I did my best.
Good. The short description is good. The shortest I've ever heard from you. Normally it's about 15, 20 minutes.
You are influenced by Ali in this. Okay, I'm a British friend. Okay, so.
Thank you, Marco. Who's next? How about Alex? Do you have a gesture?
Yeah, I would share. Well, I have two even, right? One is love and peace that really kind of stuck to me in a good way in the recent few years, I guess for apparent reasons of lack of love and peace in my universe. So that's what is always important for me about what I teach, right? And my education, I take people to nature. So it's kind of travel and nature education. And second one is this one. We often use it in online events for the audience to respond if something kind of speaks to them. And I just understand that this is really a sign of excitement and I guess some deeper connection. So that's always when I'm getting excited about something, I'm always
Great. Thank you. And Alex, you're going to be our next guest in February. And we're going to talk about traveling together with Cindy and how we can learn through traveling. So that's going to be an interesting topic as well. Yes, speaking of Cindy, do you have a gesture for us? Beautiful.
So I create a rhythm, I create a pattern. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I think I'm freezing. Am I freezing?
But we can hear you.
Okay, so I create a pattern, a rhythm, and then I invite you to participate. Actually, you can't see my hand very well, but
yeah, great. And for those of you who don't know, Cindy is an orchestra conductor, apart also from being a trainer, facilitator, and that's what she's referring to. And we had a great episode sometime last year. I think it was the second one about the an analogy between music and learning and creating an ensemble. And yes, how about Carolyn? Have you got a gesture?
Well, I finally figured out how to kind of do it. So this is me when I'm facilitating, coaching, etc. I get out of the way.
This is great. Fantastic. Beautiful. Very good. Anneke, have you got one?
Yes, I missed the part when you explained what kind of gesture. So
A
maybe
gest a gesture that represents an important part of your work.
can I just think about it?
Of course. Elsie, what about you? Have you got a gesture?
Yeah, this is a hard one. So I kind of it's kind of a fluid one. I would say it's
Mm. And what does this symbolize?
the idea really was the classic thing is it's come as you are, holding the space there, and I'm
Mm.
there to support, or I'm there to guide, really. It's just
Yeah,
depending on what the person needs.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. Well, as for me, and going back to the book and the idea of the immersive theater of learning, it would be this gesture. In most classic learning, teachers stand on the stage and distribute their knowledge, but I think the learners should be on the stage rehearsing and playing out possibilities of their future roles in life. Anneke, have you got one? No pressure.
Yes, I have. Hope it works.
Ooh, beautiful. And a few words.
Yeah, it's picking up the pace of what people need
Mm,
and what I can offer.
great. Fantastic. Okay. I give you the possibility to share a little bit more about your work, your respective work a little bit later on. We're going to go through a couple of activities, but today it's also about hats and wearing different hats. I only have one here, but but wearing different hats. So, and we had this conversation, Elsie and I, a couple of times. And so we thought it would be a good idea to kick this session off with a chat about different roles. And you wear different hats. Elsie, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for inviting me, Brent, first of all. And it's interesting because you made me think about all the hats that I wear, and I didn't realize that I have worn all these different hats in different periods of my life. So yeah, I've been in the learning space for all my life, I would say, from one end to the other. But if I were to say the learning enabler space, using your words, I've been a teacher for about 12 years now. And as my career and my life has evolved, I've moved from teaching to training to facilitating and coach. So it's just been a very interesting journey to reflect on. I hadn't realized I did that. And I've been doing that through for young adults as well as university level, and of course the adults who are professionals. So that's kind of what I do.
Mm-hmm. But I also know that you are a coach and a certified coach. So, in what way is that different?
Well, it's if I use it in a pure sense, and Lisbeth can join me in this conversations because we're both um, Erickson certified coaches,
Mm,
and we learn to really partner with our client to to help them reach their potential, really. And we're there to partner and co-create with them. And that's what as it's actually very difficult for me because all the roles that I've had before has always been being in the thick of it and actually helping and guiding and sharing. Whereas when you're a coach, you really do have to take that step back. And
mm,
which is why I started the gesture by holding the space and just meeting them where they are.
yeah.
And as Carolyn was saying, in a sense, we're almost in a sense getting out of the way, and helping them to take responsibility and their decisions, giving them the autonomy, giving them the power to do things.
Yeah. And I think coaching is probably also one of the most misunderstood terms in the learning space, because a lot of people call themselves coaches without necessarily using the definition that ICF, for example, would use. So when you say hold that space, so it's a much less interventionist approach. So you basically don't share, but you listen, basically. So
Yeah, you do listen. And I think the idea really is, if we can imagine presence, I suppose, maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit because I was thinking about all the different roles, is when you're a teacher, you really fill up the screen. You really are there, and the attention is on you. Whereas as you kind of move into different roles, you get further and further and further from the action. And to the point where, as Carolyn was saying, that you're really like out of the picture, and you're just there to kind of allow whatever journey that the client is experiencing, and let them on that journey, and we're just there to kind of just accompany them, just to kind of keep them company a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, when I did coaching training, I don't really work as a coach, but I had some training, some very good training, and what I found the most difficult was not to give guidance, not to give advice, but simply to listen, to ask questions, to reformulate, to be a sounding board, and to guide people gently into a direction, but the ideas come from them. Is that right?
Yes, the idea really comes, and really there's a whole word, the word partnership and co-create is very important.
Mm.
As you said, we're there to, it's almost like we're there as a mirror. We're holding up a mirror to actually say, okay, this is what you're saying, and we're there to kind of help reflect back what they're saying. And there's I said different types of coaching, and the word is interpret differently.
Yeah.
But a lot of coaches, really our role is to ask the questions and helping the client figure out what it is that they need to figure out. Because the idea is the answer is not coming from me, but it's coming from them.
Yeah.
That's helpful. I'm not sure of the other two coaches in the room. I think there are two who might want to add to what I'm saying.
Yeah, let's open up. Yes.
I'm
Karen.
certified by New Ventures West, have been for 20 years, and I've taken coaching into all of the work, even facilitation, even teaching. But the biggest trap is to make assumptions as to what the people mean. So as soon as, if any words come out of my mouth, I know exactly what you mean. I don't. I'm imposing my life experiences into them.
Mm.
A critical intervention for coaches is, as Elsie said, the mirror to mirror back, because people can be saying something, but somehow you are capturing that doesn't match with their presence, with their body, with what they've been doing. And so there's a point where you check in with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The questions can be a trap too, because this is a total another topic that maybe we can pursue much later. But is anyone acquainted with clean language? That is phenomenal for getting yourself out of the way not making assumptions, not interpreting, and staying that open space stays uncluttered by you, and it stays open for the person. So that's what I would. That's my 2 bits. Sorry.
Yeah. Can you, Carolyn, or Elsie, you nodded as well. Can you give an example of clean language?
A clean language would be really having no bias, no guiding at all. It's just a generic
You
what
stay, you stay with their verbiage. So a real danger, for example, in the cross-cultural world, our manuals and everything are cluttered with, cluttered is not a good word. We provide metaphors, like even the iceberg is a metaphor, or the process of adjusting is like a roller coaster, but that's all from our world. And the metaphors come totally from the people. So we stay with their language. So if someone says, okay, I'll take what Elsie said, presence, there's an open space or there's a presence, and I'll say, oh, is there anything else about that presence? Or I might say, what kind of presence is that? I'm not paraphrasing, and that's the trap of active listening.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex says in the chat, I love that. Good questions are much harder to find than bad answers. Love that.
did Lisbeth want to add something? Because I saw you click off.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I love the little part about metaphors. Like, wow, when you allow your clients to come up with their own metaphors, you can that like something magic happens. Like I remember like one session I had with a client, and it was this whole thing about her relationship with her managers, and she was describing a person on a bike, and then he was going through a desert, and he was like struggling not to fall, and it was amazing. It was so amazing because it really opens up the creative thinking in our clients. And to circle back to something that Elsie said earlier, and also like Elsie and I, we have spent hours talking about how do we rhyme the fact that we are both certified coaches who have learned through our coaching to like step out of the way, but at the same time, I'm also a trainer, a consultant. Clients have a certain fixed amount of hours that are supposed, I mean, in my case, the people that I work with, that need to prepare them to be a manager, a leader in their new country. So I am always wondering, like, I try to hang on to what I've learned in my coach training, but at the same time, it's like we only have 8 hours, and I do have some expertise that I need to share with them. If I don't share it with them in these 8 hours, these people are just not prepared, and they didn't get what they asked for. So, yeah, I've also learned to like question more than just like being that classic teacher. I used to teach before and like unloading the all-knowing person. So I try to question more, and find like this maybe following their lead. Some clients, it's like more like a conversation, and others prefer to have that structure. Yeah, I'm still figuring it out like years later. But I guess I'm more of a trainer and facilitator than a coach these days. But I do believe that the coaching skills that I learned are extremely valuable to my work and my role as a trainer. I guess that's where I'm at currently.
Yeah. Now, that would be my next question to Elsie, but also to everybody else. Do we have to stay in these roles, or isn't it sometimes beneficial to, like the 6 thinking hats, right? To change hats, to go from one role into another. Annika put in the chat, is coaching not one way to use in preparing your learners? So is there, even if you use classic teaching or facilitation or consulting is, can coaching be part of this? Or
If I just may answer, because I think Jamila wants to say something too, but
yeah.
I just wanted to say that in terms of when you're a certified coach for the ICF, we have certain responsibilities. So it's very hard to sometimes shift roles in a situation because it's very clear what profession you're supposed to be doing. But if we were to switch the environment into using the term a bit loosely in terms of the competencies, the skill set, then yeah, I would see it as a way to approach the learner to um, help them learn, really. So I would split that difference, if I may,
Yeah.
because I think the function of a coach following those rules, our hands are a little tied in a certain way. Whereas if we're using that generally, then yes, I would definitely say it's one way to use because we're there. It's another approach. It's another technique, I would say.
Okay, good. We come to Yamila in a moment, but she's not there yet. But Annika, how do you could you rephrase what you put in the chat as coaching not one way to use in preparing your learners? Can you give us a bit more?
Sure, yeah. On what Elsie just mentioned, like I'm not a coach, so I'm not aware of all the details that are needed to be the coach you are. But I'm working for a large government company, and they're using coaching, they're using training, they're using mentoring, yeah, they're using several kinds of ways to help their employees to grow. And coaching is one of the things, especially leadership and leaders in our company would like to have to grow. So there's a preference for people as well as how to be engaged. Not how to be engaged, but how to learn maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I had this discussion with one of my colleagues as well, and he said, "Yeah, but coaching is entirely different than learning." No, learning is the large part, and coaching can help you to learn. So that's my view, and I hope to hear more so I can have a broader perspective. So I like what you say, Elsie, that there's more to coaching than what I can see right now.
Yeah.
But if I stay in this learning bubble, I would actually see the amount of responsibility as to how the student learns, the continuum. When you're a teacher, the responsibility is on the teacher to impart knowledge. Whereas as you go further down the end, I would say when you're coaching, you're asking the learners certain questions, and they themselves are taking on the responsibility of learning. They're, in a sense, seeking their own answers to the question. And I would say you're putting the responsibility more towards the learner when you're in the coaching space, in the sense that you're asking questions and making them think and making them process and helping them to kind of come up with their answers themselves. And if I just may share an anecdote, I just finished teaching a class yesterday, and it was the last day, and we asked for feedback how it was. And one woman actually said, they've grown up in the French school system, and it's always been just people just dumping information. Whereas in my class, it was very much interactive and asking the questions. And she said, usually I forget information, but because I've had to go through the process myself, I will retain this information for a lot longer, which was a very interesting and a very gratifying feedback.
Yeah, maybe there's also a difference. Sorry, I see a hand and I'm speaking. So maybe, yes, it's okay. I see also a difference between training on schools, on educational systems, and in the work environment. I hope it once will be the same. because learning is learning, right? But I know that students can maybe have so much amount of responsibility, and adults can have maybe more, but still they're always the people who you can put into the responsibility shoes because they have to learn. It's not your job to get them to learn, it's their job. So coaching could be one of the ways to help them take responsibility more.
Yeah. I think Jamila is dying to say something.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm not a teacher or a coach. I'm a learner, and I wanted to ask. I mean, I realize here there are a lot of conscient people here trying to impart their knowledge and awake the knowledge within the people they coach. That's for me more interesting than just imparting the lessons, you know. But while you were talking, it came to my mind this question that it might be in my own experience. I mean, I don't have a coaching experience as you do, but in my learning experience through life, through school, through whatever, is that every time someone crush my new beliefs, the things, the paradigms I grew up with, the things that I believe that they are certain in my life, every time someone make me turn around and question what I believe is the ultimate truth of whatever, is the best knowledge I had through my years. So here's my question for you: that you are all coaches, you all have this huge experience, making people realize new truths. How important is it for you to confront your student, or your coachee, whatever it's called, how important is for you to confront this person to a truth he's denying? Because with everything happening in the world right now, I've been thinking social media always, because of the algorithm, it always it goes with your thought. If you think certain political views, or you think certain conspiracy theories, or you think someone is good or something is bad or something is the things you see in social media, the things that appear to you, make you believe the world is with you. You're not wrong. All the people, I mean, it doesn't matter what you do believe. Whatever you believe, this entire environment around you make you think everybody thinks like you.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
In order to evolve. So this is my question for you. I mean, as I said, I'm not a coach, and I'm just a learner here,
That's a great question. It's a great question. It reminds me of the difference. I think it was Mezirow, I remember well, who said, who distinguished between informative learning and transformative learning. Or learning to be transformative, you have to have this moment of cognitive dissonance, so this moment of irritation. Wait a minute, is what I have believed in so far, is that totally wrong? And it's actually quite a frustrating moment, or it can be liberating afterwards, but there is a moment when you think where it's uncomfortable, and where it's, where you resist and you say, no, I've always been told differently. And that's interesting. Now, Lise put something interesting in the chat. She said, as a coach, you can challenge a client with a different perspective.
Yeah, we can. Through questions, you can challenge them. What if questions, for example. What if someone told you, I don't know, something that is different from their beliefs? It's as a coach, you don't force it on people, and I think in our current political climate, like questioning people and using open-ended questions that like challenge people's beliefs, is way more effective. Or you can get through to a person. It's also, it allows you to find some common ground with a person who's on the other side, right? What we see, and I love that you said that, like a lot of people are like, you know, they're very entrenched and like people are unfollowing their friends on social media and they're not talking to family members. And for me personally, I've made it a rule. I don't unfollow people because they have different views. Yeah, I will still disagree with them, but I think it's important to know where they are coming from, because otherwise we create our own like echo chambers. And when I every morning when I wake up, and I know for my mental health I should stop doing this, especially now, but the first thing I do is I read the media. I read newspapers, news channels, etc. I am absolutely not a Republican or Trump supporter, but I do read Fox News because I want to know the information that circulates there, which allows me to fact check if maybe the media that I prefer to consult are filtering out that information. And it really, like, again, like we challenge our clients, I can challenge my own beliefs. So I think in coaching, like asking critical questions, exposing or like, you know, like just offering them a different perspective can be very, you know, it can open their minds a little bit.
Yeah.
You're not telling them they're wrong. It's up to them to decide like, oh, am I allowing this to be challenged? Like, am I willing to look for consensus? Am I looking to find middle ground, or do I reject that? Like, I'm not forcing it on people.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Hmm.
Now, there are some activities I would like us to engage in as well. And one of them is, I hope it's not too theoretical. I will share a graph with you. And we could do this in breakouts, but maybe we could just do it here together. I hope you can all see this. And basically, I use two dimensions here to distinguish between different roles as learning enablers, like coaches or facilitators or trainers. One is the degree of personalization. So not very personalized, so everybody gets the same, or highly personalized, so every person gets something different. And on the other hand, you have script or no script. So heavily scripted could be, I don't know, a lecture that you have basically formulated and you just read it, or you just give it. And then no script is basically a bit like improvisation. So if we start with coaching, where would you put coach?
I would say very personalized.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say not scripted at all, because like Elsie and I, like at Ericsson, there's kind of like there is some kind of like a process or a framework that you want to, I mean, that allows you to have outcomes
Yeah.
For your client. Yeah.
Over there.
Elsie.
I would I would say a little less, because I think
Yeah.
it's this the words are really how much of it improvised and how much is it kind of rigid. I would say that's where you're heading, Brent. But the idea really is there's a process to follow, but the content of it really is just we take I keep on saying we meet the client where they are, and we really are just there to kind of say, as Carolyn was saying, you're using their words. So it's really kind of I never know where what words and where we're going, and we just have to follow kind of trust the process.
Yeah.
So I'm a little less.
But we still need a contract.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, that's what I was referring to with the process. Like within every coaching session, there's still some type of a minimal script there. Carolyn, how do you feel about this? You're on mute.
Yeah. I'll broaden the definition of script because Elsie and Lisbeth are exactly right. It's a process, and it's not like there's a straight verbiage that you have to use.
Yeah. 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 In terms of theater, if we compare it with theater, because that's kind of the analogy I've been using, I mean, there are different types of theater, right? There is platform theater where people stand on a stage and they basically have a script, right? So they interpret it in different ways. Maybe every night is a little different, but it's the same text every night. And then there is improv theater, the other extreme, where nobody knows what's going to happen, and they get a cue from the audience, and then they just go for it. Somewhere in the middle, I would see, for example, street theater, where they have certain routines, but then they react to the audience, right? And they do different things every time. First, they need to gather an audience, and then they do different routines, and then do a little bit of improvisation and so on. So it's kind of halfway between the two. Where would you see coaching? It's definitely not platform. Is it improvisation? Improvisation has certain rules as well and procedures, and
I would say no, it's not improvisation because I feel the improvisation because you just don't know where it's going to go. With coaching, there is still some structure that you agreed with in the beginning. It's not like, well, let's just kind of just do whatever. That's not the idea. The real idea is, where do you want to go? And let's kind of help you get to where you want to go, but you decide.
The issue there is that often what the initial contract is for, especially if it's just a single person, what they say they want from the coaching is really not what they want.
That's why
so you have to keep checking and reflecting back, and sometimes you might just say, I'm not hearing commitment.
Yeah.
Like that, and then have them respond.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why the agreement is so important. That's and as Carolyn was saying, sometimes it's not the beginning. That's our job as a coach to help them understand exactly what is it they want to do and produce. And sometimes you do need to check in, away when you realize, hey, we're kind of offbeat a little bit. So sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If I may tune in just for a second, when we think about theater, and I really love that analogy, it makes me thinking that a coach is not a performer. Well, basically in theater, he would also be, I don't know what's the name for that position, but a director who's coaching and a person who's performing and who's gonna improvise or and gives feedback on that.
Well, if I may, the director has a vision, don't they? Whereas the coach doesn't.
Not necessarily. Well, what I mean, well, a director who does not have a script, but somebody who is helping a person who is gonna improvise on stage, improve their performance, or gives tips and gives feedback and suggests to look at a different angle.
Yeah, that's a good point, Aliona.
Yeah. Let's have a look at some of the others. Lecturer is probably pretty easy. Where would you put lecturer?
Well, I guess we're saying low personalization,
Yeah.
which is painful to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And high scripts, right? Maybe keynote speaker is somewhere there as well.
I think a keynote speaker has to be more personalized.
Yeah. 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 So they need to find out things before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then maybe also some flexibility when the audience, a good keynote speaker can also go off script. But that's true for all these roles, right? So there is a kind of margin you can go
You
up.
have to have some kind of a script so that then when you make adjustments, you understand where your anchor was that necessitated the adjustment.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, teacher, Elsie, you said you are a teacher and you have been a teacher. How much script do you have?
I really think the pure teachers they're out there, and they're getting less and less pure teachers in the sense that people are moving more towards the trainer and facilitator side, because there is more personalization. Whereas I think as a teacher, there is some personalization because a good teacher, I would say, needs to kind of figure out what the learner needs, right?
Yeah, yeah, somewhere here, right? Yeah, but there is a script, right, which is the curriculum. So usually teachers they follow something that doesn't come from the learners, right? So the learners are just enrolled very often, at least in primary school or high school. University maybe a little different, but then this is take it or leave it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How about the trainers then, corporate trainers?
That's a tough one because I think it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on how much freedom they are given.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah.
Or take.
And depends on the topic they train on.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Now that's a tough one. So it could be anywhere here in that space, right? But what about facilitators? Some of you used that term earlier on.
I would say it's more scripted than a coach, but it's also very personalized because you're really kind of dealing with what's in front of you, just guiding them towards a goal. So
Yeah. 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 Cindy. Cindy, you're on mute. Cindy, do you
Well,
hear?
I have a comment about facilitator. Well, actually, maybe several of these. You're talking about script, but what you're not talking about is the unsaid script. And it's, for example, a facilitator has to know so much about what's going on, but that doesn't mean that they are saying what's going on. They're helping guide something else. As I would say, as a conductor, I'm a facilitator, and I have to have an immense amount of information in my brain, but it's for me to be able to help you. It's not for me to regurgitate the script that's in my brain. It's for me to help you express yourself. So I think I'm a little bit confused about this exercise because I think there's a lot of script that we have it's for us. It's completely unsaid. If that
True,
makes sense.
but you don't necessarily come in with a written script or with a script. So you work with a context that is given to you. You react to that's what you call unwritten script, right?
Well, no, I come in with everything's completely written.
Okay.
As a conductor, everything's completely written, but I'm not going to talk to you about from the B flat goes to the C, and then you have a little bit of no. Those are words. Those are useless words because when you get into practice, it's about the action of it,
Yeah,
and not the words of it. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not.
yeah, but I think maybe the question is the word script. I think, is it scripted or is it not? Which implies flexibility in my head.
Mm. Yeah.
So I think that's where I would say the the difference may be, because if you're using improv on one end, which is kind of whatever happens happens, versus the other end where you have to follow everything step by step, in that sense,
Mm.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. In music, it would be less scripted, would be jazz, for example. You have a pattern, you have a sequence of chords, and then there's a lot of improvisation going on, whereas classical music is much more scripted. Yeah.
Well, it's how you use the script,
Yeah.
but the script itself is not said.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what I mean about the flexibility. But again, but and when I first saw this, I was like, I would. It's very hard to put it on two dimensions.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I suppose a few more things, but
Which dimensions would you add?
I actually felt there was uh um an autonomy, a responsibility or autonomy acts there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Okay.
in,
Yes.
in terms of where the coach role is, and I actually put down presence in
Mhm.
terms of where how present are they,
Yeah.
how much do they show, how much do they lead, versus how much do you allow the learner to lead.
Yeah. 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 Responsibility, accountability is a very important thing, isn't it? So who takes responsibility of their learning, right? So that's very, very important one.
And the leading, I think, is also important too. How much how do you lead, or does the learner lead? And I think that has a huge impact on what hat you're wearing at that moment as well.
Absolutely.
I
And
used to do a similar access, but trust was one and control was the other, and
Mm.
teacher, facilitator, coach. And as you move into coaching, the trust has to be higher, and you, as the professional, have to be comfortable with not controlling.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, that's definitely a very, very important one, control, right? So as a teacher with a syllabus and a script and so on, you have the illusion that you are in control, but basically you're only in control of the content. You're not in control of the learning at all.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
Yes.
so
may I
There's a
suggest
school board.
yeah.
may I
Yes.
suggest that we move facilitator a little lower? Because when we speak about personalization, I feel like with a facilitator works with a group of people. It's unusual to have one learner. And when we have a group, it is really not quite possible to achieve the same level of personalization as you do with coaching. It may not go, well, facilitation may not go according to the script. It has its structure, but it's not as personalized in terms of participants' needs and ideas and reflecting on them and playing with them, because it's just not possible to do that with a diverse group of people.
Okay. Yes. Now let's maybe not do all of them, but I think some of the people who are here are learning experience designers, right? So, or am I the only one? I don't think so. So what is learning experience design here? Very often connected with facilitation, because you need to design before you facilitate. And not all learning experience designers actually see the learners. Sometimes they only design the experience and then somebody else facilitates it. But where does this come in terms of script? How much script does a learning experience designer have?
I think, to be honest, a learning experience designer aims for as much as personalization or human
Yeah.
factors.
Yeah.
And the script will follow the process. So
Yeah.
the iterative way of refreshing or redesigning is a big part of learning experience design.
Exactly.
So the script is not at the top, but it's halfway, I think.
Yeah, somewhere here.
Yeah.
So personalization, there is script, but there is room for freedom. And
Sure.
but there is a script. It could be the game design. It could be the process, sequence of activities and so on. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Aliona.
I would say it's the most scripted, if I understand that correctly, the most scripted but the learner does not feel that because he only gets to experience the path that he chooses through personalization of the activity. So for example, it would be even more scripted than a lecture, but because lecture would provide you with information in certain topic and just it does not personalize. But then the learning experience, it has multiple options, and depending on where you go and how you react and how you answer, it can take you in different directions, and it requires like a huge amount of work. And it's all scripted, but it's not obvious to a learner, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a flexible script, but it's a script, often more like a tree, right? If they do this, then we go that way. Or if you choose this, then we go that way.
Well, then you have to separate two things, the design part of the learning experience, because that's the designer, and the actual learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
That should be taken separate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. Shall we finish with the instructional designer? Anybody here an instructional designer? Very often, these two are used as synonyms, but I think they're not. What's your take on this, Annika?
Well, I moved from instructional design to learning experience design. And the reason why is because I noticed that the instructional designer uses a lot of script, if I may, a lot of script of how to design stuff, and being in the starting point already know what you want to do at the end, and no flexibility to change in the meantime. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but that's what I discovered. And then when I saw learning experience design, who had the flexibility to iterate and be more of in the where the people are at the moment, I found it more helpful for me. So I'm not using instructional design only if there's a real need for it, but then to do learning experience design. So I would say definitely scripted.
Yeah.
It can be very personal, by the way. So yeah, of course it can. It depends on the target group, etc.
Do you realize something? We're ending up with a graph that is constantly moving. And we have no agreement on this. And I put a graph like this into my book, and I realized it doesn't hold the water because it really depends on every individual and how their take on it. And so you can move these little dots around. There are some basic differences like between coaching and lecturing, but what's more important than the graph and to have an accurate graph is to have these dimensions, right? Script and non-script, accountability, control and trust, personalization. So I think these are the criteria we could use. Elsie, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, my face is is full of expression in the sense that I think a lot of it is definition too.
Yeah.
Because when Annika was talking about instructional design, I actually saw that as being the bigger whole and learning experience design as being a subset of it. In the sense, and that's why in my head, I would position it a little higher in the personalization. Because when you're designing how someone learns, you need to kind of really see what what will impact them the most.
Yeah.
Some people will need a certain type of instruction, more direct, and some people are more into let's feel it, experience it. And I know, research has said that is the best way to learn, but I'm just, in my head, but not everyone wants to be immersed, and they don't. It's very difficult sometimes for people to let themselves go and let themselves be immersed in that moment.
Yeah.
So that's why I was it was interesting to actually hear Annika's interpretation, and my interpretation was slightly different. So I'm curious also, if we define these roles differently, where would we put these things?
Yeah, I don't know if you agree, Annika, but for me, one of the key differences between instructional design and experience design is in the name. Experience is about experience, so it's about emotions and being in the moment and doing something, whereas instruction is about instruction. So it's about more about content. So it's more an intellectual process and okay, what is the best path to actually acquire this knowledge? Whereas learning experience design is more about, it's a much more holistic thing about how do we want learners to feel, what kind of challenges we want them to go through. And what I find in instructional design often a bit frustrating is that it's very linear. So we want people to follow from A to B and to C and to D, and with and actually brains are not linear at all, and emotions are even less linear. Uh, and and so most e-learning programs I didn't follow through as a learner. So I would find them either too predictable or too hard, and definitely not for me. What do you think, Annika? Am I too
Well,
harsh?
we have a history of, I think 5, 6 years, 7 years ago, when the LXD-Con started, Learning Experience Design, in I think Utrecht or Amsterdam, I don't know. And of course, it's personal. It spoke to me because I'm a designer. I love design. I love the art, and also um the things we can't think about, but we can feel, or in our soul. And that's why it spoke to me. Like, I was always using my brain to figure out how instruction can be at the best. But it was all here. Like, um, you should do first an overview, because people want to know where they are. Then you should start with the learning objectives, because they want to know what they are going for. And there were assumptions. But I followed it because it was in the university I went to, and they said, you have to do this. Okay. And it was also very research grounded. So I thought, oh, this must be true. And when I discovered learning experience design, it was more about, and of course, I was also on a moment in my time that I was open for it to be true. So for everybody, it could be different. It was more about the human part of the learning. So if your brain works like this, and if your emotions and brain work together, how can we enhance our learning space to help people learn, and not what they should learn? So it's more the conditions and the providing the guidance, the whatever they need to be in a state of learning. And then maybe instruction design. So for me, it's the other way around, by the way, Elsie. If learning experience design is good, then instructional can have their place.
Hmm.
I don't know if it makes sense, but this is my answer for now.
I think it's really, as I said, what how I defined instruction, because I think I'm with you. I think we're speaking about the same thing. And it's just the words that are there, that it's just our interpretation is just slightly, but I really think it's really the whole instructional for me is not telling. It's more like I'm trying to how can I encourage this person to learn, and what can I create to help them learn. And I think experiential learning is one method. And like telling, well, I think I'm just kind of redefining it now. Telling was instructing in that sense is a different way.
Mm.
Like, for example, younger students need perhaps instructional because they don't have that perhaps they're not used to that responsibility of deciding their path.
That's
If I may say that.
debatable because how do children learn? That children learn through play, and that's an experience. There's no instruction in it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But isn't it kind of like how free they feel as well? How much they trust themselves?
Yeah.
Because as really young children, they trust themselves and they just go. But once you put some parameters around them, then they kind of are a little bit more restricted and a little bit more fearful. And then you come out the other end as being, hey, I trust myself again. And yeah, I'm going to just put my own personal mark on it. So
Yeah.
that's perhaps another subject all entirely.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the maturity of the learner maybe has something to do with it.
Very interesting discussion. I'm conscious of the time, and there are two more things I would like us to do. And you can then decide if whether I used instructional design or learning experience design for these. And I have a link in the chat, and I can also show you here on screen. So it looks a little bit like this. So you can all click on the link in the chat, and all you have to do is click somewhere in the middle. Don't take it too seriously. So these are archetypes of learning enablers, and some of them may be a bit more positive than others. But which of these, take a few minutes to go through them. Originally, I wanted to put you all into a breakout room of one, but I suppose you would feel very lonely there. So let's just be quiet for a couple of moments. I show you how it works. You just click in the middle and then you see some icons here. Either you can just go next, go from one to the other, or you can click on any of the icons you want, like here, and then you click in the middle. You have the entertainer. So the entertainer wants to make every session, learning session, and every interaction as engaging and fun as possible. They constantly look for ways to vary the way they run their sessions. One of the weaknesses of the entertainer may be that they tend to be the main focus of attention instead of the learners themselves, or that they choose an activity for its attractiveness rather than its focus on purpose and learning. So a fun somebody who wants to create a great fun atmosphere. So maybe you have a little bit of that in your approach, maybe not. Okay, let's take a couple of minutes and so everyone can play around with this a little bit. And let's say after 5, 6, 7 minutes, when I say go, not before, you put the roles that you play, maybe 1 role, 2 roles, 3 roles, 4 roles, into the chat. Everybody has access?
Mhm.
Okay. And maybe also some of the roles remind you of people you've met. Elsie has kicked it off. Synergist and mentor. Beautiful.
Yeah, I cheated because I actually, I'm gonna plug your book, Bernd. Because I just in preparation for today, I actually did the reading, and so I didn't have to click through the sign, so I was able to answer quicker.
Okay. Okay. Annika is a catalyst and a mentor. I wonder if we see any serial killers tonight. Definitely no dinosaurs. Storyteller and catalyst. Beautiful. Okay, you can still type in your profiles, but let's hear um, from Elsie first. You said synergist. So synergist is a bit like the opposite of an expert, right? So in a sense, of course, synergists also know something, but they're not an expert in a particular field, but they draw on different, pools of knowledge and connect dots. So why did they speak to you?
Yeah, because I think the difference was here, if I understand the definition, is kind of allowing the learner to make the dots themselves.
Yeah.
Not there. I think the expert, I think the synergist, it's not completely other end. The synergist actually has knowledge. Um, you know, but the job there is to kind of allow the learner to kind of create their own
Yeah.
make something bigger.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Marco, storyteller. Yes. So why is this so important? Why is story such an important ingredient in learning?
I think we need to give just the main structure of a story with all the roots of the hero's journey in order to get the attention. Not to go too far with the script, going back to your exercise, the previous one, but at least to have a sort of road to follow and to give to the clients or to the person we are talking with. But anyway, this is natural. This is very natural for every human being.
Yeah.
To tell stories. What I do often is give example of my own experiences, not to put myself in the center, but this way, I mean, people are somehow more available to talk about themselves, and not necessarily in every story telling there is a moment of crisis, and I like to talk about critical moments of my life, even if they were not good for me, of course. And because this way people feel empathy, they give trust to you because you are opening yourself to them. And
Yeah.
so to do this, of course, you need to have a scheme, very light scheme, and sometimes the scheme of the hero's journey is very useful.
Yeah. Yes. So it's vulnerability as well, being human.
Absolutely. That's
And
something.
yeah. So it's sharing stories, but it could also be as you said, the session itself could be like a story that develops, right?
Absolutely.
And so Alex, you would like to be a quest initiator. So yeah, I can see you as a quest initiator. So why does that resonate with you?
I don't know. I modestly and humbly, but sometimes I feel like, what does it mean to be Gandalf in, his young years? Who was this guy? Where did he learn things that he learned, and is my journey much of a different from that? Because I don't exactly feel like a hero. I feel more like somebody who creates adventures and sends hobbits to funny tasks. So, and I also about quests, I wanted to say that why I like it is because it involves the dimension of time. Because it is not just a single event, but it is a sequence of events. And if you understand what kind of journey lies ahead, you can also step aside and you can see as your learner actually goes through these ups and downs, something like that.
There is also an element of risk in quests, no? Because you may not actually solve the riddle, you may not actually get there, or you may find a different solution that you as an initiator may not even have thought of. So there is something open about a quest, right? So I often, I mean, for example, I prefer challenges to tasks, right? Task is like you have to do this. A challenge is, it involves it motivates you. Okay, yeah, what's the solution? Do you know the solution? No, I don't. I want you to find a way. Great. Carolyn, among other roles, is also an antagonist. Can you explain?
Well, what resonated with me was knowing there were multiple solutions.
Yeah.
So um, having people, it's kind of the devil's advocate, I guess.
Yeah.
And not, shaking people out of their certainty, perhaps,
Yeah.
and open up to multiple solutions.
Yeah. 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 That's great.
You don't have to be antagonistic to be an antagonist.
No, it's a role you play. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And Lisbeth, you're also a catalyst.
Yeah, it's about getting your learners to like actually want to motivate them to follow through on the rest of the training because many of these programs are not mandatory. And most of my clients have recently moved abroad or are about to leave. So they're very, very hectic. So yeah, just the creating that motivation and also to keep learning after the end of the training. So these are always my words. Like it's the end of the training, but it's the start of the journey.
And I think the winner here in terms of the number of roles is Aliona with expert, synergist, entertainer, catalyst, clockwork, and dinosaur. How do you juggle with all these roles, Aliona?
I think it comes naturally, and I'm just put in a life situation where I am a learning enabler in my profession, in my life, with my children, and just with different groups of people. And depending on who I'm working with, I put on different hats. And while maybe you're surprised to see a dinosaur because you did not expect to see one. And sometimes I think it is better to be traditional. And some ways of instruction or learning we may see as obsolete just because there are more like modern things to do. There is technology we can use. Uh, like I still ask my kids to practice their cursive because I think it's good for them.
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
it's better to grab a book than to watch an old book, not a, you know, well, I certainly let them read whatever Jogman, comic books. But I also encourage them to read something that would probably be seen as obsolete nowadays. So mostly with kids, I'm a dinosaur at times. But again, you see that I have different hats that I can put on.
I would love to see the dinosaur in you sometime. Uh, anyway, thank you very, very much. We're approaching the end, but in our sessions, there's always an intro, that was the gesture, and there is an outro. So there is another, not a task, but a challenge for you. Actually, we would normally need more time for this, but let's see if it works in less than 10 minutes. I would like to share an example with you. A while ago, story is a while ago, I was just walking down a street and I saw a van, and they were delivering and installing windows, not the computer windows, but real windows for houses. And the title on the van was Créateur de perspective, creator of perspectives. And I thought, isn't that beautiful? So they're not just selling a service, they are selling the experience of opening, they're selling a dream, they're selling a future. And if I had needed windows, I would have called them immediately. I want to work with you. So that's what I call a bold job title. A bold title, which is not necessarily something you would put on your business card. You can, but it is something that touches the soul and the essence of what you want to do. Maybe you have one already, or maybe you want to create one today. And if you have one, or if you've just come up with one, just put it in the chat.
Fern, could you please repeat the task? Because I was so in that metaphor of creating perspectives. I didn't hear the task.
Yes. Right. So something that describes your work, but maybe in a metaphorical way, or maybe in a way that is more inspiring than just functional, which is more about the soul of what you do, or the vision, and not about the actual role you play, like I am a coach, intercultural coach, or whatever it is. So that's, everybody understands that. But you can
Thank you.
have another title, which is more about what makes you unique. Beautiful. So Marco says, geographer of emotions. Cindy says, purposeful paths. Annika says, creator of places to unfold. Elsie says, partner in your success. Beautiful. Shall we get some more? I love that. Gandalf in the making.
I'm sorry, I understand how not humble it sounds, but like that's kind of what I guess drives me, if it's even possible, right? Like
That's
something like
fine.
that.
That's fine. Co-creative possibilities. I love that. Gently rocking the boat. That's great. Beautiful. Okay. Wandering wisdom as well. Yes. Fantastic. Beautiful. Yeah. And it's fine to have several titles and to change them, to interchange them. And it's fine to use them, to share them. And it's fine also, I think sometimes I do this, or very often I do this with learners, whatever field they're in, right? And it's a great opener as well. I did this with a group of accountants, and that was a really nice experience. And so, yeah, wonderful. Thank you very, very much for coming today. Our next episode is on the 17th of February, if I'm not mistaken. And it's going to be with our Gandalf in the making, Alex Farlander, and also with Cindy Egolf, Wandering Wisdom and Purposeful Paths, about travel. And so Alex is a little bit of an old hand in what is often referred to as transformational travel. So traveling not just to see the world, to see another place, but also to learn, to change, to learn something about yourself, and so on. And Cindy and I have a project to do this for the very, very first time. And I would love to see Marco at this session as well, because he has run a number of retreats and journeys around emotional geography as well. So that would be wonderful to have you as a guest as well, if you're free on the 17th of February. Okay, that's great. So if you're interested, do check in again, but there will be a recording as well if you're not free. And thank you so much for coming. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you, Elsie, for being the guest for today.
Thank you for inviting me. And it's a pleasure to be with you all.
And enjoy your days, your evenings, and your weekends. And see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.